Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Monday's version of the Daily Market Insight video here on November 15th, a little over 5 minutes after market close, 4:06 p.m. Eastern time to be exact here in Jacksonville, Florida. In today's video, we're going to try and keep it quick. We've got two non-tech buys plus rates, the dollar, and some stocks that have been showing some extreme relative strength over the last week or so. So before we get into all that, first, let's talk about what just happened. Indices mostly flat to red G5 week. As you can see, the G5 down about 0.8% there, much more than any of the indices. S&P basically break even for the day. Qs more or less the same. Dow more or less the same. Mid caps, the leader for the day, up about 0.5%, and the Russell 2000 down about 0.5%. Market state remains in an uptrend. Although we didn't finish at the highs of the day per se, a pretty normal digestion day. We had gotten a little bit extended. We talked about that last Monday and last week. So nothing necessarily wrong today. We did see some pretty brutal action in some of the high beta growth names. We saw some great action in some of the other high beta growth names. So a little bit of a mixed bag. We're going to get to that in a moment. But before we do, trend gauge. There are no changes from last Friday's video to today, Don. I know on 11/12, you can see here, we changed market leaders from neutral back to up. Today, some of those leaders breaking down, but really not the big time leaders. Most of those still look very, very good. And we're going to look at that in here in just a second. Short term, medium, and long all remain the same as well, above all major moving averages on all major indices. So before we get to the charts, please allow me to reference the team here at Revere. This is myself, Hunter, in the middle. If you have any questions, please send me an email, hunter@revereasset.com. I'd be happy to talk with you. Or if you're interested in our strategy, interested in what we do, you can email me, or you can email Dan, Tim, Merrill, Alex, or Don at revereasset.com as well. So let's start with the S&P. So as we talked about, basically flat on the day, but the key here, staying above the moving averages, right? Staying above the 8-day by about 1/3% to 0.5% on the S&P. We're starting to see these moving averages here, the 21, the green line, and the 50-day, the orange line, start to kind of catch up and hook up a little bit more. So ideally, you want to see that continue and see the trend continue in the right direction. Although we were flat today, staying above the 8-day is a good sign after we came down below it last week. The lows of 11/10 are going to be important on not only on the indices, but a lot of stocks, as well as the lows from Friday on a lot of stocks you want to pay attention to as well. QQQ down just a smidgen today, not much at all, about 2% from the 21, 5% from the 50. Last week, we talked about how we were about 5% from the 21, 7% from the 50-day here. That's gotten a little bit more reasonable. Same story, kind of like we talked about with the S&P. Back above the 8, we want to see that continue to hold true. And then Friday's lows, and the lows from 11/10, which is going to be Wednesday, very important moving forward. You can see that the 21 is not too far off those lows from 11/10, just about $1 below it. The S&P is kind of close to the same story. The Dow, the slowest of the group, or the least extended, you could say, of the group. The DIA currently right on the 8-day, while all of the others are slightly above or very close. EMA, or just a little bit above the 21, less than 1%, less than 3% from the 50. Trend still looking in the right direction. We want to see that continue to move forward, right? 21 continue to move higher, 8-day continue to move higher, and so forth. IWM right on the 8-day. This 234 level has now coincided with the 21 exponential moving average. I talked about that last week as well. That's a good thing. Got some dual support there per se, right? You've got the 21-day, plus you've got these previous highs, right? So you want to see that continue to hold. Same thing, we want to see the 11/10 lows hold here on IWM. And then MDY actually looks very similar to what you see with IWM. A little bit ahead of IWM in regards to the breakout, but very similar. Back actually stronger really over the last few days, above the 8-day here. So you got this Russell 2000 and the Dow basically right on the 8-day exponential. You've got the S&P, the Qs, and mid caps above the 8-day and have all the moving averages trended in the right direction. Just still a little bit moderately extended at the moment, nothing crazy. TLT continuing to move to the downside, right? Which conversely means that interest rates are going up, which theoretically should be good for banks. We saw some decent performance from banks today. Nothing extremely, insane in regards to the nature of the move, but the ETFs themselves were green, kind of what you would want to see. But TLT making a short move down below the 50 and the 21, as you can see there. That's something we want to pay attention to. Do we get back above? Do we continue lower? But a sharp move lower for TLT today, plus the dollar also continuing slightly higher, and actually slightly isn't appropriate. That's a decent sized move for the dollar to the upside. So something to keep in mind as a tailwind, or not a tailwind, excuse me, a headwind for stocks. A rising dollar and also rising rates. What stocks does that benefit is really the question to be asked. And we're going to look at some of those possibly that could benefit here in just a moment. So let's get to some of those stocks that are showing big time relative strength as of recent. So net is one of those that showed relative strength today, up 1% while the markets were flat to down, above yesterday or Friday's high, excuse me. So net, one of our biggest positions in Grotection, showing nice relative strength today. Another one of our bigger positions in Grotection, Roblox, was down 2 to 3% for the majority of the day, ended up finishing green, up 0.5% on a day where the S&P was flat to red. It may seem minimal or nominal, but you want to pay attention to those stocks that are not doing what the market is doing, which for a lot of today, the market was kind of weak. The S&P was down towards the end of the day. So Roblox green, Airbnb, another one that's slightly green, showing relative strength today. Pretty tight action here on Airbnb after this big gap up. And the two that we've talked about probably the least that have had a really strong move recently, as of last week, a big gap up. TTD, big time relative strength coming into today, up 5%, big time volume, as you can see. And then Unity Software, two of the strongest stocks in the market here, Unity and TTD. You can see not the greatest candle for Unity, but look at the RS line here on Unity. Same story for TTD. Look at the RS line moving almost vertical here on both of these. So big time changing character for the RS line to some degree, you could say, on both of those stocks, but two stocks that are acting like leaders. A few more here. Snow, which was green for pretty much the whole day, barely down at all, up 2%. This thing has absolutely been a monster. SoFi was much better earlier in the morning, still green, but just not the greatest finish to the day. Was up 3, 4, or 5% earlier today. Now at the end of the day, it comes in, less than 1%, but still green. A few more here. Actually, let's go to our new buys. So we made 2 new buys today, one in the industrial space, and then the next one we'll get to in just a moment. But Boeing was the buy in the industrial space, and it's pretty clear, I think, where the line in the sand here was, getting back above this 200-day, above all the moving averages here, and then as you can see through this 232.10 high, and closing above that 230 level, closing above the 200-day. So a big move and a big stock with some volume. We pay attention to that. You can see some big blue volume bars kind of sticking out here over the last month or so. So one of our new buys, Boeing. The other was FAS, which is a leverage product on XLF. And you'll see how this is setting up here on the 21-day exponential moving average. A lot of these companies like JP Morgan, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, and what have you also look very similar to this chart here. So those were the two non-tech buys, Boeing and FAS, which is a derivative more or less of XLF. A couple of more areas that looked good today. One of our holdings, Suncor, up slightly today, recapturing the 8-day moving average, 8-day exponential moving average, Matador, one I mentioned a good bit, kind of a similar story, up 2.5%, 3% today, back above the 8-day exponential. And you kind of see the same thing on the charts here. XLE, the energy ETF, XOP, the oil and gas exploration ETF, very similar kind of patterns on both of those. And then also one of our buys, our newer buys, GDX, or Nugget, which is the actual derivative here. This is the actual portfolio holding. It's a leverage product on GDX, but you can see GDX back above the 200-day moving average, also green on a day where the market was flat to down. That's a positive. So some of the negative, we did sell Tesla today, a rebreak of the 1,000 level. It did reclaim it at the very end of the day. but below the 200-day, second close below the 200-day, second time slicing through the 200, or excuse me, the 21-day. This is what I'm talking about here, the green line. Second time slicing through the 21-day since the big move up. Not really what you want to see, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. It could get right back above the 21 and continue to move on up. So, but got out of Tesla today, the remaining position. We had taken profits on it prior. Some other laggards, Nucor, steel down today. A lot of the steel stocks on the 21 STLD looks pretty similar. AMBA also down today, not quite all the way to the 21, but about a 2.5%, 3% loser today. Enphase, similar story, down about 2.5%, 3%, right on the 8-day. And then Mara absolutely crushed here. This is a Bitcoin mining company, recently reported earnings. Not sure if there's any news related to this one, but a crypto mining company that has really the most institutional adoption of any that I can find. Absolutely crushed today, which we know these things are very volatile, but some of the others not nearly as bad, which is why I wonder if there was news related. So HUT down about 5%. You really didn't have the actual Bitcoin ETFs down much at all, which is also another reason for concern and confusion on Mara. But Mara absolutely taking it on the chin today. So that wraps up the video, everybody. Thank you for listening. And I will see you on Thursday's video as well as the podcast this week. So enjoy your week, everyone. And thanks again.